My world was a quiet, predictable place until the soft ping of a speaker in the garage shattered it. I was buried under the hood of a dusty water heater when her voice, faint and hurried, slithered through the static. "He's in the shower. You've got 2 minutes." It was a message not meant for me, but the old intercom, a temperamental relic, had other plans. I froze, wrench in hand, my breath caught in my throat. Another voice, a low, giddy man's laugh I didn't recognize, followed. "I can't believe this is real," he chuckled. Her giggle, thin and conspiratorial, was a sound I'd never heard from her before. "Don't get greedy. We had a deal." The wrench slipped from my numb fingers, clattering on the concrete. The noise felt deafening, a gunshot in the silent tableau of my life. I stumbled backward, staring at the speaker as if it were a venomous snake, a conduit of a truth too ugly to be real. For 10 minutes I stood in that garage, my mind a storm of static, the distant drone of the shower upstairs a mocking counterpoint. My brain couldn't form a thought, just the overwhelming roar of a reality I couldn't accept. When I finally moved, it was to get in my car and drive, the gas gauge sinking with every mile, the world outside screaming a single, unanswerable question. "You heard what you heard." That was 4 days ago. Now I'm writing this from a rental house by a dried-up lake in Kentucky, a place that smells of paint thinner and stale wood, a place where the only sound is the quiet I so desperately craved. My phone, a buzzing box of her unanswered pleas, sat silent until this morning. I knew the lies she would spin, the tears she'd fake, the way she'd try to twist my reality back into a shape she could control. But then she called, and a broken, bleeding part of me, the part that still wanted to believe in the ghost of our marriage, answered. My voice, a pathetic, small thing, surprised me. "Hello," I said, a child opening the door to a monster I already knew. The silence on the other end wasn't hesitant. It was a loaded weapon. "Cal," she began, her voice cracking in a way that felt practiced. "I know what you think you heard, but please, just let me explain." I let the silence stretch, a tactic I'd learned from her, a weight she couldn't bear. She exhaled hard, the sound of a person holding her breath for a lifetime. It wasn't what it sounded like. He showed up without warning, someone from my past. I panicked. "Didn't sound like panic," I said, my voice hollow, like I was watching her through soundproof glass. The tone in her voice sharpened. "You think I wanted this? You think I planned for you to hear that?" I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "If you had, you would have been quieter, lied more carefully." Another long pause, the sound of her rebuilding her script. "I messed up," she finally said, "but it didn't mean anything. I never touched him. It was just words, stupid nostalgia." That's when the floor began to rise to meet me. The memories flooded back. Her hugs that felt like a friend's, the weekends she needed space, the way she'd look at her phone like a lover. It wasn't just words. "You gave him access to our house," I whispered. "Our hallway. Our marriage." "Don't do this," she said, her voice hardening. "You're spiraling. This doesn't have to be the end of everything. Just come home. You owe me that. You owe me that." The words echoed in my head as I stared out at the bone-dry lake. The world felt wrong, unnatural. I let the silence stretch, waiting for her to break, to reveal something more. But all I got was a frustrated sigh. "Where are you?" she finally asked. "I'm not trying to trap you, Cal. I just need you to understand. You left. Everything's on fire. I need you to come back before it's too late." "Too late for what?" I asked, a crack forming in my chest. "To lie more effectively?" Then almost inaudibly she whispered, "Because he's not gone." My breath hitched. "What?" "He's been calling me, showing up at my office. I think he followed me home yesterday. He knows I'm alone now. And Cal, he's not who I thought he was. I'm scared." Part of me wanted to tell her to deal with the chaos she created, but another, more foolish part, the part that packed her photo in my hoodie, was already picturing her, alone and terrified. "Why are you really calling?" I asked. "I think he's going to do something," she said, her voice raw with fear. And I don't know who else to call. The game unfolds. Her words echoed long after the call ended. I think he's going to do something. It wasn't manipulation anymore. It was fear, a raw, primal terror that twisted my gut. Was she scared of him, or of what he might reveal? I sat alone for hours, pacing the cramped rental, the silence a haunted thing. Not once did she say his name or explain how it started. She just dropped a shadow into my life and asked me to come back. But worse than betrayal? Worse than standing in your garage and hearing your wife's conspiratorial giggle? I didn't think worse existed until midnight, when a quick, deliberate knock came at the door. I froze. No neighbors. No one I had told where I was. My car was hidden. Someone was looking for me. The knock didn't repeat. No footsteps, just silence. After 10 minutes, I crept to the door and peered through the curtain. Nothing. I opened the door, my hand trembling as I reached for a small, folded piece of paper under the mat. The note was damp, the jagged handwriting unfamiliar. 3 words. She's lying again. I locked the door, then locked it again and again. Someone was watching, someone who knew her secrets. Her fear suddenly made a little more sense. The next morning, her voice message buzzed through my phone. Cal, he came by again last night. He said your name. He said, you left more behind than just a note. Please, I don't feel safe. She'd flipped the script from accused to victim, dragging me into her nightmare. He said your name. What did that mean? The note, the knock, her voice, none of it fit a simple narrative of infidelity. It was a game, and I was just another piece on the board. The past surfaces. The note still sat on my passenger seat as I drove aimlessly, its weight a physical thing. She's lying again. The desperation in her voice, the paranoia, the quiet plea, it was all a tangled knot I couldn't untie. And that one sentence. He said your name. I pulled over and scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't thought about in years. Maggie. Maggie was Rena's old friend, someone who paid attention. If anyone knew about this mysterious man, it was her. I sent a message, something neutral, fishing for information about anyone obsessive from Rena's past. Her reply was instant. You should come see me. This isn't something to text about. It wasn't curiosity, it was urgency. When I arrived at her apartment, she hugged me tight. I should have warned you, she said. We sat in her kitchen, surrounded by dying plants and stacks of books. There was a guy named Grady, she began. They met at a yoga retreat years ago. It got obsessive fast. He made her feel seen, but it got dark. He started following her, showing up at her job. One time, she found her favorite lipstick smeared on her door. She told me he'd stopped, but I never believed he was gone. My heart hammered in my chest. And you think this is him? He liked playing from the shadows, she explained. Once she cut him off, he didn't go after her. He went after her world. That's why I stopped talking to her. He started leaving messages, getting into my apartment. He likes games. He wants you to think it's all about infidelity, but it's not. That's just the bait. Maggie pulled out a torn notebook and handed me a photo. Rena, younger, next to a man with sunken eyes and a grin that didn't reach them. That's him, she said. He likes to ruin people slowly. Whatever you left behind, you better go back and finish it before he does. The unspoken truth. I wasn't running anymore. I was returning, dragging behind me a truth I never wanted to face. The drive was a blur of Maggie's warning. He likes to ruin people slowly. Rena's call sounded less like a manipulation and more like a cry for help. I arrived just before sunset. Our house sat too still, the curtains drawn, no lights. The key still worked, the lock clicking open with an unsettling ease, as if the trap was still waiting. The air inside was heavy, the living room untouched, too clean. Rena? I called out softly. No response. Then I saw it on the hallway table. Her phone, unlocked, A message typed but never sent. Please don't come back. He knows everything. He's not safe anymore. My blood turned to ice. She wasn't talking about me. I moved down the hallway, every step heavier than the last. I pushed open the bedroom door. The bed was untouched. A half-packed suitcase sat on the floor. And then a small click from the bathroom door. Someone was inside. I backed away, grabbing a picture frame, my body a statue of fear. The door creaked open, and Rena stepped out. Her eyes were wide, startled, haunted. She looked thinner, paler. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. "You weren't supposed to come back tonight," she whispered. "Where is he?" I asked, lowering the frame. She walked past me to the window, peering out. "I haven't seen him since yesterday," she murmured. "But he's been here. I woke up 3 nights ago and found the front door wide open. Nothing missing, just open. Like he wanted me to know. Why didn't you go to the police?" She gave a tired laugh. "I did. An officer told me off the record that Grady's name came up in another case, but it went nowhere. And then that officer stopped returning my calls." My jaw clenched. "So you thought calling me would help?" Her voice cracked. I looked around the room. Everything felt fragile. His presence was here, in the stillness, in the way her eyes darted to shadows. I realized then that she wasn't afraid of being caught anymore. She was afraid of being erased. The confession. We sat in the dim light of our bedroom, now a tomb. "Why did you stay here?" I asked, my voice sharp. "If you knew he was in the house, why didn't you go?" Her eyes met mine, glassy and guarded, because I didn't know where he wasn't. That stopped me cold. She wasn't afraid of being found. She was afraid there was nowhere left to hide. She reached under the bed and pulled out a shoebox, setting it between us. "He's been sending these," she whispered. I opened the box to find photos of me, candid shots taken through windows and car windshields. One of me in the garage, working on the water heater. My throat tightened. He'd been watching me. At the bottom of the box was a folded piece of paper. A crude drawing of a house with 2 stick figures. The one labeled "You" was scratched out entirely. Next to it, in a childlike scrawl, were 3 words. "Not yours anymore." "He's trying to erase me," I muttered. "He used to say that," Rena said, her voice hollow. "Back when I tried to end things. I don't leave scars, I replace the canvas." "Why didn't you tell me about him before we got married?" I demanded. A look of grief and shame twisted her face. "Because for the longest time, I thought I deserved him. I was younger, reckless. I liked the attention, the way he looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered. But when I tried to set boundaries, he changed. And by the time I realized how bad it was too late. I buried it." "So all of this," I said, "the distance, the secrets, was that all him?" "No," she said, the honesty a knife. "Some of it was me. I did drift. I did lie. I was so used to keeping things hidden that eventually I just kept hiding." A soft, deliberate creak came from the hallway. Rena bolted upright. I reached for the bedside lamp. Another creak, closer, and then silence. We crept into the hallway. No one was there, but smeared in red across the mirror were 2 words, "Still here." The escape. The words on the mirror were precise, chilling. He hadn't just broken in, he had lingered, and he wanted us to know. Rena looked like she was about to faint. I grabbed her arm and guided her into the kitchen, locking every door and checking every window. The back deadbolt was half turned. Not open, but not fully locked. He had been inside and left us with just enough doubt to lose sleep. I called the police, giving them a stripped-down version of events. While we waited, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I opened her laptop. I needed to know everything. Buried deep in a folder was an audio file dated the day before I left. Her voice, recorded quietly, confessed to a ghost she had been trying to outrun. "He's not who he used to be. I tried to warn you, and now he's watching him, Cal, my husband. Something happens to me, he's the reason. Something happens to Cal, it's because of me." The doorbell rang. The police took a report, photographed the mirror, and left with a flimsy sense of protection. When the door closed, I turned to Rena. "This won't stop," I said. "You know that, right?" "I think he's building towards something," she replied. "He doesn't want to scare us. He wants to break us. When we're at our lowest, he'll come in and finish whatever he thinks he started." I sat down, my legs shaking. "We have to go, tonight." We packed the essentials, and I grabbed the shoebox of photos. As we were about to leave, she pointed to the mirror. The words were gone, as if they had never been there. The cops hadn't cleaned it. That was the moment I realized we weren't dealing with obsession anymore. We were dealing with control. We drove without a destination, only a direction. Away. Rena sat beside me, her hand clenched around her phone. We hadn't spoken in nearly an hour. "Can't keep running," I finally said. "I know," she whispered. "But if we stop too soon, he'll finish what he started." At a roadside motel in Tennessee, I booked a room under a fake name. Rena crashed on the bed, her eyes open and unfocused. I sat on the floor, spreading out the puzzle pieces from the shoebox. The photos, the note, the transcripts. I was looking for a pattern, a mistake. In the metadata of one of the photos, a single GPS tag. He made a mistake. Just one. One file improperly stripped. One set of coordinates attached to a photo of me, working on the water heater in my garage. It was a digital fingerprint, a single thread leading back to the spider at the center of the web. I had the location. Now, I just had to figure out how to use it.